It is
the hell was that?
It is now time for a new segment, Brian's Corner, here on the Drive-Thru. Jim, we're going to play a game. What's in your pocket?
We're going to play a game, and you're going to put me in a silo and say, try to find the corner.
No. What I'm going to do is I have 3 programs I've taken off the pile behind me of things I need to file. I'm going to tell you the card. You pick which show you would have spent your money to attend.
Okay, well, now, hold on. Hold on. Let's make this even more interesting. Give me the card, and I'm going to tell you, after each card, I'm going to tell you what territory I think it was and what year I think it was, and then I will pick the card at the end that I would have attended.
Okay, a couple of these I think may be easy. We'll start with this one. I'll go from main event down. Okay. No, I'll go from opening match up.
All right.
Opening match.
Just be consistent.
The opening match, Adrian Belazharan versus the Russian Angel.
Okay.
Second match, Kojima Saito versus Cyclone Negro.
Okay.
The third match, Jack Dalton versus Sam Steamboat.
Ooh. Okay.
Fourth match, Jim Dalton versus Johnny Costas.
Okay.
Like a good old-fashioned show. Then we get a tag team match, the Dalton Boys versus Sam Steamboat and Johnny Costas.
Okay. So this was probably not one of the bigger towns.
And the main event, which I think will give away the show, 2 out of 3 falls, Sputnik Monroe versus Duke Kiamuka.
Okay, well, we're in Florida, one of the smaller towns. I'm going to say in the area of 1965 to 7.
We are in Fort Worth, Texas.
What?
November 13th, 1961.
61? Holy shit. I thought that would have been Florida because of Steamboat and Keokuk and Monroe. I see that I was mistaken.
All right. I thought this would be an easy one for you. I thought you would immediately identify this.
Son of a bitch.
By the way, this program, it was originally sent to a fan. The fan's name, from Trenton, New Jersey, James Morrison.
Oh, my God. J.J. Dillon.
That's right.
How did you get that?
I've got a whole bunch of his. I got a whole bunch of different programs and magazines, and you look at the labels, and you're like, how did I get this? I got a bunch of old big-time wrestling and wrestling lives addressed to Les Milady.
I've got some addressed to Angelo Poffo.
I've got some addressed to Silvio Poffo.
I've got some addressed to Nunya. Because I don't want you to know who they were addressed to. How about that?
All right, well, you failed the first one. Let me give you another card.
I flunked out. That was the shits.
The second card, the opening match, Alex Perez versus Jerry Kozak. The second match, Mr. Fuji versus Pez Whatley.
Ooh.
The third match, Johnny Weaver and Scott Casey versus the Super Destroyer and Dennis Stamp. The fourth match, which may be the one that completely gives it away, Swede Hansen versus Ricky Romero. And finally, for the World Heavyweight Championship, Terry Funk versus Tank Patton.
Well, it obviously was the West Texas Amarillo territory. It was obviously, God, it would almost have to be, let's see, with Terry won and 76. I didn't know Johnny Weaver worked Texas in 76.
Lubbock, Texas, November 5th, 1976.
There you go.
And our final program, let me open this up to the card here. The opening match, Dennis Hall versus Big Bad John. And then we get a mixed match, a midget lady and a grown man.
Darlin Dagmar.
No.
No? Diamond Lil?
Cuddles Anderson and Jose Batancourt versus Baby Celine and Pepe Lopez.
Pepe Lopez.
What did I say?
You said Pepe.
Pepe Lopez, excuse me.
Pepe Lopez.
And then we get 2 main events. The second main event, for the first time in town, Ernie Catlad versus Suji Sito. And the main event, a grudge match ordered by the NWA. Ken Lucas and Bob Armstrong versus the Interns with Dr. Ken Ramey. Interns spelled INTERNES.
Yeah, there was an optional E with the Interns back in those days. It's the Tennessee territory, I would think. And I would have to say that that's, God damn it, 70, 71, 72?
April 20th, 1970.
Okay. Birmingham,
Alabama.
But that's the Tennessee territory.
It is.
The Goulas Welch territory. Okay. Yes, and you go back, Ernie Ladd made several appearances as a star even in the late 60s, early 70s in that territory, and they brought him in most of the time as a babyface for the African-American crowd. Pepe Lopez.
I didn't say Pepe.
Well, you have a funny way of pronouncing things. For example, when you say things like cool whip or white, you say it white instead of white.
All right, guess this card. You ready?
All right.
Joe Blanchard versus Paul DeGaulle. Ted Christie versus Herbie Freeman.
Good Lord.
Bob Nandor versus Argentina Bogny.
Aldo Bogny.
Right. Billy Darnell and Tiny Tim versus Hardy Kruskamp and Bill Brummel.
Bo Brummel.
It says Bull, B-U-L-L.
Okay.
Jim Sixay versus Lord Blears. Billy Varga versus Seymour Koenig. And the main event, Fritz von Goring versus Nature Boy Rogers.
I'm about to say that that's California. That's 1955, 6, 7.
No.
No?
July 30th, 1958, the Olympic Auditorium.
Okay, so I was 1 year off.
But you guessed 3 years.
Well, I had a range there. All right, Billy Varga spilled the beans on that being California.
Count Billy Varga. There's a certain name. When I said Ricky Romero, I'm like, okay, this gives it away instantly. As soon as you hear this name, because some of those other names, you're like, okay, Scott Casey did get around and go some places early in his career. But Ricky Romero, that can only be one place.
There you go. He was so successful, he didn't have to leave.
You know what I've really become a big fan of? I got a few of these, and I'm trying to get more. Got one right here. The Nashville Wrestling News newspaper.
The Wrestling News newspaper, but they did like the Wrestling News Norman Kites.
No. Before that.
Newspaper. No?
Like from the 50s, the actual newspaper.
Oh, okay. Was it a newspaper? Because I've got some of the old Nashville programs. It was a larger size, but it was just a one sheet folded over to 4 pages.
I mean, in a way, this is that, but this is newspaper size.
Wow, I have not seen that.
Yeah, Matt Gossip by Nick Goulas. Let me see. Does it actually have a card here?
Well, he knew all the gossip.
He sure did.
For sure.
Does it list the actual card in here? Okay, here's the card. I'm sorry, I bumped the mic. Guy LaRose versus Danny Dusick. Cyclone Anaya.
By the way, wait, back up now. Guy LaRose, you know who that was?
That's, which Frenchman is that who changed his gimmick?
Hans Schmidt.
Hans Schmidt.
That is the biggest German heel of the 1950s. He was one at 1 year in the early 50s out of Chicago, was one of the 5 highest paid wrestlers in the country. And Danny Dusick was an off-brand synthetic Dusick brother that was based in Nashville for years and years.
Also on the show, Cyclone Anaya versus Tony Martin. And the main event, again, only 3 matches on the show in Nashville.
That was a big show back then.
The main event, history's biggest return grudge tag battle.
In history.
No time limit.
That's the way he used to say it. Nick would say, we got history's biggest return grudge tag team battle in history.
No time limit, no disqualification. 2 referees, both in the ring. Winner take all. The Fargo brothers were ordered to accept the return match or be suspended. Also, one of them must wear a jacket so they can be told apart when wrestling. The main event for the World Tag Titles, the champions, Jackie and Don Fargo versus Buddy Rogers and Tex Riley.
Wow.
How about that tag team?
Now, everybody's going, Tex Riley, who the fuck? Tex Riley was one of the biggest baby faces in the history of the Tennessee territory in the 40s and 50s and into the maybe early 60s. And that's why he was in that match, because he was probably he was a bigger box office attraction as a baby face in Tennessee at that point than maybe even Buddy Rogers would have been. But that's especially fucking cool because Jackie and Don Fargo took so much from Buddy Rogers, and with their connection with Jack Pfeffer, of course, he encouraged their liberal borrowing of stuff like that. But the strut and the blonde hair and the jackets, they were a tag team version of Nature Boy Buddy Rogers. That's why they got over, and plus they could work. And so that's going to be it's either going to be 57 or 58.
Very good. June 18th, 1957, Hippodrome.
There you go, because they came in 57, the Fargos in Tennessee, and got over so strong. For the next 3 or 4 years, they would always have a run, then they'd leave and go somewhere and then come back in and have another run again. And they were remembered so well when Jackie decided to stay there and Don left. That's what made Jackie the guy for the next 15 years. And Jerry Jarrett was so impressed by the Fargos when he saw him. He was a 12-year-old, 13-year-old kid selling the programs in the Hippodrome in Nashville. When he got his territory, his company started, years later, he needed a babyface tag team. That's where the Fabulous Ones came from, because he just redid the Fargo Brothers playbook, but starting as babyfaces, and put Jackie with them to give them the stamp of validation. And it fucking took off like a rocket.
Hey, you want to guess who wrote this? At least who it seems like wrote this. I'll read the opening paragraph here. Promoter Nick Goulas assigned another great all-star card for Tuesday night at the Hippodrome. Did promoter Nick Goulas write that?
Probably. Either that or, everybody knew his style. It was always the same verbiage. The newspaper ads looked the same. The way the matches were sold. No time limit, no disqualification. History's biggest grudge tag team battle in history, etc., etc. Everything was hyperbole. Everything was over the top. But unlike Bob Luce in Chicago, these weren't just provocative words blurted out. Kill, death ape, hate, whatever, blood. This was somewhat complete sentences. But that was the classic old-time Tennessee way of doing the programs and the programs between the wrestlers, the ongoing rivalries. And they'd start out with a match, then they'd come back with a return match, then they'd come back with a return match, no time limit, no disqualification. Then something dastardly would happen there, and they'd return that with 2 referees. And you'd get every week. So these guys would have matches for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 weeks in a row. And they would keep it fresh until the ultimate blow-off, which was if the babyface won cleanly with no rebuttal, that was it. Otherwise, your program was still going. DQ, count out, no contest, heel gets a win by a fuck, whatever, you can keep going. The people will come back if you do your job right every week until the babyface wins. Once the babyface wins, don't book that match again. Go to the next thing. It's not that fucking hard.
Well, let's go to the next thing here, but that was our new segment where we look at old programs. Good job.
That was our new segment that called Brian Last Pulls Something Out of His Ass to stir this show on to victory.